one last thing I want to talk about, and it might be of a frivolous sort of a nature, but we'll see. So I was listening to Honey Badger Radio when you were on one point. I think Deborah Powney was on there too. I think the subject had to do with the Amber Heard and Depp trial, right? Like the
Okay.
results of that. And I think you were talking about depiction of violence towards men in media. I think it was. Did you recall talking about something like that?
Well, I know I've talked about that in a couple of different contexts.
Hmm.
But
Like,
yeah,
yeah. Like, I think you were talking about how it's, more expectant to see that kind, it's
normalized.
normalized. It's fun. It's funny when a woman beats the crap out of a guy, whereas the vice versa would
Oh
be
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah, yeah,
Something like that. Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah, but so I guess the question I want to gear into this is that as we know, and as those who watched in the ICMI know, that you're a big comedy person. Uh,
Yeah.
right. So is there instances where the violence, at least among the men, is rather ingeniously done? Like, for context, I'm a ridiculously big fan of the Three Stooges, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So is there a way to kind of balance, because I've heard some MRAs say that, well, not I don't mean MRAs, but some guys who are within our sphere say that it's bad that things like the Three Stooges exist because it's seeing men being pathetic and getting beaten up and looking like a bunch of idiots. While I myself have provided a counter point that this is the brilliance of men, this showmanship on screen that do ridiculous acts and like cartoon violence and
Yeah.
and it's brilliant, this sort of brilliant thing. So your thoughts on the Three Stooges and everything like that?
Well, what's interesting about the Three Stooges and makes a gender statement to me, honestly, is it goes right back into how we look at men as effectors of the world and women as affected, right?
Hmm.
So men can entertain by being cartoonish,
Hmm.
and the Three Stooges are cartoonish. Like that was their whole shtick, was they were cartoonish.
Hmm.
Um, Women, their ego gets in the way, and women, the female viewer's ego gets in the way of allowing women to be cartoonish, and it wasn't always that way. Right? You could
Right.
have cartoonish portrayals of women. It used to be that men portrayed women in on stage, but
Well,
you could
yeah,
have
yeah.
cartoonish portrayals of women, and it was okay. And if you look at old comedy, you have women falling down the stairs. You have women bumping into walls. They get drunk and um, like end up in a cast and all that kind of stuff. And over time, that just kind of disappears.
Right.
What's different is women can inflict on men and be viewed as harmless, and men cannot inflict anything on women and be viewed as harmless. They can inflict on each other and be viewed as harmless, but even women can't really be viewed as harmless inflicting things on other women. So it's really that men affect, women are affected, kind of attitude that we have that takes away from our ability to enjoy the comedy of a person behaving cartoonishly if
Hmm.
that person just happens to be female. And the sad thing about it is there's a kind of benefit, a kind of uh, making you bigger on the inside, I guess, when you are able to make other people have a positive experience by being cartoonish. And you don't have to be taken seriously. You don't have to be super intelligent. You don't have to be super strong. You just have to be, a cartoonish.
Hmm.
And it's a gift to the individual, and it's a gift from it's to the viewer to have that interaction. And it would be awful if we took that away from men because women can't have it. right? It
Absolutely.
would be better if we said, gosh, it really sucks that women can't also have this. We need to clear out the stupid attitudes, the privilege, the ego, the sense of only being affected instead of recognizing our effect on the world around us that women have, so that women can have this experience as well. Where my heart breaks for the Three Stooges is that they did not get the compensation they deserved.
Right, right.
They should have, like, I think everybody loves the Three Stooges, and I use their public domain stuff sometimes. Like you'll hear Curly, you'll hear the Curly whoop, you'll
Mhm.
hear certainly I'm a victim of circumstance, all
Yeah.
of that. You'll hear all of that in some of my different. I love the Three Stooges. I grew up on watching that stuff,
Hmm. Yeah.
and Mr. Bean too.
Yeah.
Mr. Bean is not comically violent, he's comically inept, right?
Hmm.
I identify with that so way too much, Um, to the well, okay, so part of EDS is having a lack of normal awareness of your position in space. So I might reach for something. I never leave lids off of things, because if
Hmm.
I'm reaching for something, I think I am effectively getting my hand into the correct position to pick it up, but
Yeah.
actually I hit it too hard with my fingertips and I knock it over
Mm.
more often than other people do. So I have that kind of clumsiness, and I have to work harder to be mindful of my surroundings than your average person does. And I also sometimes have to work harder to be mindful of my interaction with things. So for a while in 2002, I walked around with a bald spot underneath my hair on the back of my head because I got wrapped up in packing tape at work.
Oh.
Um, things like that. So I love Mr. Bean
Hmm.
because I love to be able to look at that and go, oh my gosh, I totally identify with what he's doing and why he made that mistake, and it's hilarious that it happened, and the results are hilarious, and I can laugh at it when it happens to me.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of women get this sense of, I don't know how to, kind of similar to if you were put into a prom dress and sent outside in a situation where you were not planning to do that. Like where it wasn't for comic effect, it wasn't for some sort of charity thing. Like sometimes guys do the reverse dress thing, not
Yeah.
not to cross dress, but
Hmm.
as a look, we're raising money for this.
I get it.
Like
Yeah.
it wasn't for anything like that, and then they shoved you out into a public place full of people, and it's totally not you.
Hmm.
And like women are like that when we look silly,
Yeah.
unless we acclimate ourselves to it.
Hmm.
So I've made a deliberate habit, of acclimating myself to being comfortable looking silly. And it has been, for me personally, it has taken a huge amount of stress out of my life. Like I can't, it's almost like having a cancer removed.
Hmm.
Um, I can't overstate how much I have benefited with becoming comfortable looking silly to other people.
It's said often that women are the more neurotic sex. Do you think this immersion in humor could cure a lot of that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You you have no idea how neurotic I am. Oh my gosh. Yeah, like I almost throw up before every show.
Oh wow. Oh,
Seriously,
did you
it's
throw
that
up before
bad.
this? Okay.
No, no, no. I'm not in charge of it, so I don't,
Oh,
it's not
good,
the
good.
same. But in any case, like because I have that, um, I recognize it in other women, and I think all of us have a degree of that neuroticism.
Hmm.
But women who are willing to engage in and be immersed in comedy, like real comedy, not like Amy Schumer comedy, but
Yeah,
like
right. Yeah.
actual. looking
Yeah.
silly or being funny or being sarcastic or whatever, for laughs. It, I can't say that it totally cured all of the depression that I've ever had, but
But it
it
helps.
certainly made it livable.
Yeah.
And it certainly alleviated a huge chunk of it.
Hmm.
And it very much changed my brain. And I think a lot of women I think men benefit from that. And I think it would be a horrible shame if we turned around and told men, um, the roughhousing that you naturally engage in, you're not allowed to make that look silly
Right.
because that's comedic violence toward men. Um, and that's basically what the Three Stooges are. Now, should we continue in a world where men are expected to do that and women aren't? No.
Right.
I think there should be just as much room in the world for stoogettes.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I think we should have more respect and consideration and love for our stooges.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's how that should be handled.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the old days were so different. Like because as we were talking about that, as we were talking about silly women and such. I'm just thinking of the short In the Sweet Pie and Pie. That's the one where the pie fights happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Men and women beating. Like
Getting hit in the face with pies. Yep.
all. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like that was as ridiculous as I think that was the first time pie fights were really a thing. I think in
Yeah.
in film as well. Yeah.
Well,
And
and the pie fight in the Great Race,
mhm,
um, and like that was another one. So the feminist in that was always comedically offended.
mhm,
You can't offend women anymore. You offend women, it's not funny. It's bad, right? But that the poke and the doink noises, the cartoonish
mhm,
violence with the Three Stooges,
mhm.
women's social version of that, the social equivalent of that in women is the comically offended woman.
Ah.
I know, like old movies always have these scenes where um, the guy does something that is perfectly innocent, perfectly unintentional,
Mhm.
not at all should be offensive,
Right.
but something happens that changes what the woman is exposed to or sees,
Mhm.
and she's comically offended. So no harm is done, but she's
Yeah.
just completely outraged and
Yeah.
how dare you, and goes off the
Yeah.
cuff and all, and it's hilarious. And then there are
Yeah.
some instances where you have the woman that's a battle axe and the guy
Mhm.
comically offends her, and it's like the eye poke thing,
Yeah.
but with emotions, and we can't even have that anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. I processed it as a lot of thumbing your nose at the female aristocracy almost. I mean,
Yes.
kind of that's just the way I processed it. Yeah, especially coming from someone as diminutive as the Three Stooges, because usually the aristocratic people, all these rich people's houses, they're slightly taller. Even the women, they're slightly taller than the Stooges, but it's like and they're over there just like practically not caring. Of course, they'd be kind of like comically kind of attentive to the women in their own way, but that's just it. It's a very comic exaggeration, and they know it. So it's still thumbing their nose at that that self-importance of those of the women and the aristocracy in general at the time. It was very rebellious.
It is, but it is also like that's an old Hollywood trope. The self-important woman getting taken
Hmm.
down a peg and having a temper
Right.
tantrum, and it's a comedic temper tantrum, and you just don't see that so much anymore.
Hmm.
And it's something it's lost, and it's the kind of thing that you could show girls back in the day, and they don't want to be her, right? Like my
Right.
dad did that with Cheech and Chong. Like they're hilarious and their movies are great and the storylines are funny and great and everything, but you don't want to be the person that everyone's laughing at because of how they act
Right.
when they're high.
Hmm.
And like that was my dad's anti-drug. Like we watched Cheech and Chong movies, and you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it kept us, my brother and me both, from trying anything. But yeah, like that kind of comedy should still be around. That kind of, uh, and honestly, I don't think that I don't think it's misandric for the Three Stooges to.
Right. Oh, absolutely not. Like, if anything, it shows a great time for us men at the time, you
Yeah,
know. So, and we could stand to kind of learn some lessons.
yeah.
Sorry.
You know, I think it's women's loss that there's not Three Stoogettes, and that
Hmm.
there's not the female social equivalent of Three Stoogettes pretty much anymore at all.
Right. Absolutely. Well, to close this off, do you have any kind of last thoughts for our listeners here?
Well, in terms of, so we started this out with Roe versus Wade.
Yep.
Excuse me, and we've covered a lot of neat ground and everything.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of the relationship between gynocentrism and male disposability, and the female entitlement behind the abortion issue, because really it
Hmm.
is about entitlement, the lack of
It
personal
is. Yeah.
agency involved in
Yeah.
failure to prevent pregnancy, and responding to
Hmm.
failure to prevent pregnancy by uh, demanding an out at the expense of a human life.
Hmm.
Like, to me, that is almost the thing I call the accountability gap in a
Hmm.
nutshell,
Right.
right? Abortion advocates always say if men could get pregnant, abortion would be a sacrament. My counter is this: if men could get pregnant, abortion wouldn't exist. Because
Exactly.
that's the way men behave. That's the way men are. If men could get pregnant, abortion wouldn't exist. There's your accountability gap.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, they're as fathers, they're already being hounded on, for being supposedly deadbeats and not doing enough, not providing enough financial support. There's no way they're not being hounded on for something like that. So what makes anyone think that they'll get away with having abortions, right?
Exactly. Not only would most men, the overwhelming majority of men just would not do that. Like, if they got
Right.
pregnant, they would do everything that they could to protect that child and nurture that child,
Hmm.
and they'd be excited about it,
Yeah.
even if they didn't plan it. And
Yeah.
it's just there. Here's a person for them to dedicate to, take care of, and protect and raise and everything, like a little mini me. Like,
Hmm.
men do that when they become fathers. They would, if they were mothers, it would be the same thing.
Hmm.
And then society would never tolerate men asking for a way out. Society would not tolerate men asking for a way to correct their failure to prevent conception by killing a living human organism,
Right.
even if it's one that doesn't have a face yet. You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
like, that just wouldn't happen.
Right. It's been wonderful to talk to you tonight, Hannah. It's something I wish I could have all the time, because I think we're on the same page on a lot of things. I think we connect a lot on the stuff like the comedies and some of the philosophies and everything like that. There's like more ground to cover someday. I know you're busy, so I can't ask you to come on all the time, but maybe every so often in a year, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hopefully, over the next couple of years, my schedule will not be as busy as it has been over the past few years. So,
Hmm.
crossing fingers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you have a good night.
Oh, you too, definitely.